feel like leadership is less trailblazing and more bushwhacking through chaos with a plastic spork? I get it. If you're overwhelmed, under resourced, and wondering when exactly you became the official fire putter outer, you're not alone. Leadership is wild, but you don't have to wander through it unprepared. Grab your copy of Leadership on the Rocks: How to Survive, Adapt, and Succeed in the Wilderness of Leadership. It's the ultimate survival guide for leaders who've been handed a title and a to do list, but not a compass. Because you can lead with clarity, courage, and purpose, even when it feels like you're herding cats in a hurricane. Pick it up wherever you buy books, and let's navigate this wilderness together.
The way I define mirrors are people who truly see you, hear you, and understand you. They see your brilliance. They see what you're capable of even before you see it and recognize it in yourself. People who are saying, you are ready for this role. Or even role models are people who inspire us. You know, Sally Ride said, the famous astronaut, NASA astronaut, you can't be what you can't see.
This is the Leadership on the Rocks podcast, where we equip and empower leaders like you to thrive in and create harmony between your professional and personal lives. I'm your host, Bethany Reese, and in today's episode, we're going to be talking with Dr. Sheila Gujrathi about how the real breakthrough doesn't come from shattering the ceiling, but from finding the right mirrors. Sheila Gujrathi, MD, is a biotech entrepreneur, executive, and champion for underrepresented leaders. Over the past 25 years, she's had the privilege of developing life-changing medicines for patients with serious diseases, while building and running private and public biotech companies, including some exciting exits. Today, she's a founder, chairwoman, board director, strategic advisor, and consultant to startup companies and investment funds. Dr. Gujrathi was the co-founder and former CEO of Gossamer Bio and former chief medical officer of Receptos. Her journey started at Northwestern University, where she earned both her MD and biomedical engineering degree in the Accelerated Honors Medical Program, and took her from the academic halls of Harvard, UCSF, and Stanford to the corporate offices of companies like McKinsey, Genentech, and Bristol Myers Squibb. Dr. Gujrathi has earned multiple leadership awards, including Amby Fellow, BLOC 100 Luminary, Healthcare Technology Report Top 25 Women Leaders in Biotechnology, Corporate Directors Forum Director of the Year, and my absolute favorite, the fiercest woman in life sciences. I love that one. But what really lights her up is creating the inclusive environments she wished she'd had throughout her career. That's why she co-founded the Biotech CEO Sisterhood, a group of trailblazing female CEOs, because we're all better when we lift each other up. Welcome to the Leadership on the Rocks podcast, Dr. Gujrathi. I'm so excited to have you.
Thank you so much, Bethany. I'm thrilled to be here.
Man, I absolutely love TED Talks. I love watching them, but your TED Talk, Shattering the Glass Ceiling by Finding the Right Mirrors, was absolutely amazing. Most TED Talks are super quiet until the end and where everybody claps, but throughout your entire TED Talk, like these women in the audience are like, yes, keep going. Yes, and amen. It was just so fun to watch. So guys, go and look her up on YouTube, the TED Talk, Shattering the Glass Ceiling. But we've all heard about the glass ceiling, let's be honest. But your book actually challenges that metaphor, and I love it. You talk about the mirror effect instead, helping leaders look inward and outward to see what's really shaping their journey. And I love that. So let's kind of unpack what that means first before we dive in. How does the mirror help us rise where the ceiling couldn't? Because let's be honest, I'm sure everybody checks the mirror before they go places, especially big meetings. So what's up with all this?
Yeah, I love this concept of the mirror effect, and it's something that I started really understanding more about later in my career. And that's really why I wanted to write about it, discuss it. I didn't even know that I was actually talking about the mirror effect until the TED Talk when I put it all together with this concept of mirrors. So mirrors, the way I define mirrors and the mirror effect is a transformation, and it's a transformative power that surrounding yourself with mirrors in your life can really afford you. It really can create that for you personally. And the way I define mirrors are people who truly see you, hear you, and understand you. They see your brilliance. They see what you're capable of even before you see it and recognize it in yourself. They support you and they have your back. And when we have these powerful types of mirrors in our lives, whether that's family members, coaches, mentors, sponsors, managers in our workplace, people who are saying, you are ready for this role, or even role models or people who inspire us. You know, Sally Ride said, the famous astronaut, NASA astronaut, you can't be what you can't see. When we
Mm,
see people who look like us, act like us, think like us in positions of power, we realize that that's absolutely a possibility for us. And we don't have those role models and we don't have those mirrors. Sometimes we don't think about that for ourselves. We don't consider that as a possibility. Or worse, we think that we're not capable of that. Like that's actually not in the cards for us. And I think over time, we have developed this limiting set of thought patterns, beliefs, and these are things that are external to us in our environment in terms of what people are telling us
mm,
or intimating to us. And these are also internal in terms of our own limiting thought patterns, our own inner dialogue, narrative, and critics that we deal with every single day, really almost every moment of every single day. So I like to talk about that glass ceiling not only being external, but also being internal, because
mm,
we do tend to internalize a lot of what we hear in our external environments. So the whole concept here is we can empower ourselves and those around us and the next generations to not think about the glass ceiling anymore. Let's put that aside, but let's really talk about mirrors. And I talk about this in my book, and I'm really excited to talk to you more about the complexity and the simplicity of really using mirrors to step into our power.
man, I love that. We're like 2 minutes in, and I feel like you're already hitting a nerve. I think about me personally. Let me just talk about me just as myself, and maybe other people identify with it, maybe they don't. But when I look at the mirror, I'm usually looking for what's wrong. Where are the gray hairs? Where are the bumps? Where are the things that, need to be fixed or touched up? And then I can even use that mirror to disqualify myself for whatever reason from going out to this certain place, or maybe I don't belong in this room. So the way I've used a mirror, I hate to say it, has usually been in a negative effect. And here you are again in the first just few minutes of this episode saying, we're not disqualifying. We're looking at the good things, and people are also looking at the good things and drawing them out of saying, I belong here. And I just want to sit here with my head tucked for a minute, and my tail between my legs saying, ouch.
You know, and I'm so glad you're bringing this up immediately because I absolutely agree. It's difficult to talk about the surrounding yourself with mirrors and all of that until you deal with yourself first.
Hmm.
So, the first part of my TED Talk, as you know, and the first part of this book that I wrote, The Mirror Effect, is about holding up your own mirror and
Ooh.
and really like raising the self-awareness to understand how are you treating yourself?
Hmm.
What are you saying to yourself continuously throughout the day and night? You know, when you wake up in the middle of the night, what are those fears and anxieties that grip you? And usually they're around, I'm not enough. I'm not good enough. I don't belong here. I'm not deserving of this. And so, I started the book out with Maya Angelou's quote, you alone are enough. You have nothing to prove to anybody. Such a beautiful and profound statement, and so
Hmm.
difficult to realize for ourselves personally. So, the first part of the book is really about holding up your own mirror because I truly believe, again, everything starts and ends with ourselves.
Hmm.
And I also bring this up because when you are in the business world, and you're striving professionally, and especially as you're advancing into higher levels of leadership, which I've had the good fortune of experiencing in my professional career and life, where I have I've really gone up and climbed that corporate ladder and really held every single role that's possible in the biopharma space in terms of C-level executive, CEO, co-founders, board director, chairwoman.
Hmm.
I find that these limiting thought patterns can really hold us back from being the most effective leader that we need to be in these environments and for our companies, for our employees, and then personally for our families, for our friends, for our loved ones. But we don't realize again how much all those things are holding us back until sometimes we're actively challenged. And then all of a sudden, these thought patterns come up and these beliefs and behaviors. I call them triggers. I'm not a
Hmm.
psychologist, but I do know what it's like to have triggers and buttons that when people push, you kind of like you said, you kind of shrink down and,
Hmm.
oh, who am I to even say that? Do I really belong in this room? Wait a minute, let me check to see, what's happening with me. So I think that's right. Like we got to do the work for our own happiness and for our own
Hmm.
freedom, personally and professionally.
That's so good. I love that you're starting with the mind, right? Everything about how we engage with the world uh, it starts with our mind. It starts with ourselves. Of you mentioned limiting beliefs several times. What do I think about myself? And then that kind of sets the tone for how I engage with the world because whatever's inside is going to be poured out from me. And I just love that you're saying, hey, check the mirror. But I also think that, as you were talking, there is that subtleness of, but you want to be confident in who you are and authentic to who you are. But also, there's that humility in that of, I don't know it all and I don't have to know it all. It's a humble confidence after you do the work of looking in the mirror. I feel like if I were taking notes, I'd be like, step one, Bethany, look in the mirror, reflect. Who am I? What do I believe about myself? What are my limiting beliefs? What are my blind spots of how I engage with the world? It's so good. And then you were talking about climbing this corporate ladder. I'm in awe of your career. I mean, you have held all of these positions and you're in science. My background's education. So there are women like me everywhere. But I just think most of the time, whenever I go into a doctor's office, it's a lot of women nurses, but it's a lot of male doctors. So were you pretty much, surrounded by a bunch of men in your industry?
Definitely, as you can imagine, in areas that are very STEM focused, science focused, there are a lot of men. And oftentimes in these executive leadership team meetings or review committees, I would be the one and only, the
Hmm.
only woman, sometimes the only person of color, and then intersectionality, the only woman of color. And it's again, you're in this environment and you get used to it, of course. I like to say that, we get so comfortable being uncomfortable, we don't even notice it. It's something that it's just amazing to me that, and you don't know it until you know what it feels like to be in a truly safe environment where you feel really authentic and your true natural self.
Hmm.
I did not grow up feeling that way. It started in medicine while I had a lot of women peers who were medical students, residents. If you looked in these ivory towers at the walls, there were all pictures of older white men who were lining the walls, and they were all the department heads, the department chiefs, the heads of the hospital, the program directors, people who are training you. And so, you don't consider that for yourself that maybe one day I will actually be a department head or a chief or, having my own lab. I mean, you just didn't have as many role models. I think that is changing, and I'm so glad. And that's why I think we're in this amazing time where those of us who actually have reached some of these higher echelons, I feel the need to give back and I want to give
Hmm.
back. And I'm meeting lots of other women who also want to help and men who want to help the next generations. My favorite demographics are actually men who have daughters. Men who have daughters call me all the time, and they get kind of what a lot of young women are facing, coming out of their education, where there's a lot of equal representation in their
Hmm.
graduate programs and their degrees. But when they come out into the workplace, into a tech company, all of a sudden things really change and they don't
Hmm.
exactly know even how to deal with it. They're not even equipped to
Yeah.
understand what's
Hmm.
happening. So I have had a number of fathers actually reach out to me asking me if I could speak to their daughters. So I
I
think
love
it's
that
really
so much.
important.
Great fathering right there. And can I just say, I feel like something that's been on my heart lately is, this is not male bashing. I think so. I'm going to talk about me, exactly what I started off with. So often I look at the mirror and then I disqualify myself. And so it's not like men have said, I mean, yes, there's always going to be some specific situations out there, but I think generally it's not like men were like, no, you cannot be in this area or whatever. It's just women look at, hey, I'm going to be the only one that's uncomfortable. I disqualify myself. I'm taking the step back. Not that I couldn't, but I choose not to go there because I would have to go first or I'll be the only one. And I love that you're doing the work. And then the father's calling you of saying, go forth, come, lead, do these things. I think it's just an amazing shift in our cultures and in our families as fathers are lifting up their girls and saying, yes, you can go forth.
Exactly. I mean, they're calling me up to saying, can I be a mirror for their daughters?
Mm,
I love that. That like that concept. I think it's so powerful because a few conversations with me and me telling these women that they can absolutely be anyone they want to be. And this is what I tell my daughter every night. You can be anything you want to be. You can do anything you want to do.
mm,
I say that to her every night before she goes to bed.
yeah.
So she can dream big. And I absolutely believe in her. And I think and I totally agree with you. This is not about male bashing any at all. This is about just all of us working together to understand what's transpiring in our environment and how do we affect change together. And we need our allies, we need our mentors and sponsors, and we need to work on this together. And it's just it's meant to be very inclusive.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot of conscious and unconscious bias that we deal with, and that's reality. And it's on all different aspects of our life. And so again, no blame, no shame, but at least raising awareness of what
Mm-hmm.
things are transpiring or why are you saying that? Like sometimes I talk about how women are perceived in the workplace. Are they are they perceived as being too assertive? Are they perceived as not being assertive enough? We're often caught in this quandary of how do I behave so
Right.
that I'm well respected and credible, yet, and also I'm listened to, and
Mm-hmm.
and I have to, and I actually know what I'm doing, and I actually think I really can really have an impact here.
Mm-hmm.
How do I do that in a way that's, going to be really acceptable to everyone? But then it's like, but then at some point you need to break free of that and just again be your authentic leader self and not worry about what other people are thinking about you. So when you hear about, well, she has sharp elbows, I'm like, well, what does that really mean?
Mm-hmm.
And are you saying she's being assertive? Well, isn't that her job? Is she not the leader of this division? So again, comparing and contrasting behaviors, and sometimes people will say, yeah, you're right. Like, why am I saying that?
Mm-hmm.
And women have unconscious biases as well as men. So we are all dealing with this together.
Yeah.
So I think we can actually break free of this together.
I love all of that. I feel like you're really calling me out on the carpet of just how do we label people? So often, and everybody has different personalities, man, woman. I mean, men and women are different in just their natural, likes and dislikes. Let's just go something very general. But then also, there's different personalities, and those personality types are both in male and female. So you can have an assertive female, but you can also have a more compassionate female, just like you can have a more compassionate male. And so often we throw these labels on people or we think that we have to be a certain label and I'm trying to label myself as a leader, therefore I'm trying to be more assertive. Like, for example, I'm not the A-type personality, I'm more of the compassionate leader. And so if I stepped in because I thought I have to look like everybody else, I have to match everybody else's image and therefore be more assertive, I am not authentic to myself and I'm immediately going to suffer as a leader, and so will my team that I'm leading. And so what you said, you have to be your authentic self. You have a set of skills, you have a personality, you have talents, you have a perspective that you bring to the table that is so unique to you. Own it, step into it and lead, but then also be humble enough to say, okay, but this is what I bring, and I know I have some holes, so I need to bring in a diverse team alongside me to fill in those gaps because I don't know it all. And I don't need everybody to be and look like me or think like me. It's so good. I love what you're doing.
Yeah, no, that's so true. That's where that security comes from. I truly believe that you can't be your most powerful self if you're not being authentic. I think that's where true power comes from. Your honesty with yourself, with others around you, and then embracing all of you,
Mm-hmm.
the light and the shadows, and owning it, and doing the work. We, continue to do the work to be our best selves and lift others up around you. And you have to also run a business, so you have to give the constructive feedback, but you can do all that with compassion. So I like to say it's not only what we do, but how we do it. And I think it's part of that being an integrated person, so you're holistic and you are the same person outside the office as you are in the office. And when you don't have that, and believe me, I had parts of my career where I was not acting, holistically. And you then sometimes have what I call cognitive dissonance because you're behaving in manners that actually aren't even aligned with your own values. And that is a very difficult and scary place to be, honestly, because then you start to lose the sense of what's important to you, your purpose, again, how you're conducting yourself in this world. And that can be very damaging. And actually amplify this negative self-talk that we have because then you're not even being true to yourself. So
Mhm.
I truly, and I think there's room for all types of diverse leaders, as you're saying. And I think even shy, introverted leaders sometimes struggle with all these things. I'm also an introvert, and actually I feel very compassionate, and and sometimes I can be a people pleaser, and you have to understand like what skills to deploy at what time periods and what's required in every given situation. So I also very much believe in situational leadership, and we
Mhm.
have to flex our styles and
Mhm.
employ a lot of different tools and resources around us, but still coming back to who we are and owning that and operating from that place.
I love it. I think, you're hitting a huge, again, nerve. I keep saying nerves because everything you're saying, we need to have more conversations about. So I'm just so excited for people to read your book. But think about, as you were talking about, not always aligning, you can get caught up in the situation where you're not even aligning and behaving that in accordance to your own values. And I'm like, man, how often does that happen to like people like politicians where they feel like they have to play the game and then before you know it, they are so far from who they were and what they set out to do. We have to stay on guard to that. And I think it goes back to kind of if we were talking about steps, step one, what you were saying is you need to constantly look in the mirror and reflect and analyze, where am I coming from? What is my mindset? What do I believe? Who am I? What am I set out to do? And so you have to always go back and reflect on your own reflection. If you're enjoying the Leadership on the Rocks podcast, be sure to subscribe and follow so you don't miss a single episode. Also, be sure to rate the show. We hope to earn 5 stars in serving you in leadership, and through your ratings, it'll help us get the word out about what we do here at Leadership on the Rocks. Now, back to the show. So let's transition a little bit because as you have shared your story of kind of moving up in the biotech world, all these different roles, oftentimes you were the only woman. Have you ever been in an environment where you're like, I don't want to stay in this environment? Like a lot of listeners right now may be sitting in environments that drain them. They're tired of playing the game. They're caught up in it and they're like, you know, I'm misaligned here, whether it be values or maybe it's the work or whatever. And so, how can leaders discern when it's time to adapt and change? When is it time to walk away to find that like healthier ecosystem, I guess? Because sometimes it's hard to tell if we're growing roots in a place or if we're just stuck in the mud. Help us.
Yes, great set of questions, and not trivial, not easy. Especially, and I'm really cognizant of people who need to earn money and have a livelihood and support their families. And I've had these conversations with women at events I've done and people I've mentored. And it's, you're there, it's often, complex situations. And the other thing I wanted to say is this is the whole second part of my book, reflecting on our surroundings and understanding the environments in which we operate. So we start with ourselves. We
Mm-hmm.
raise the self-awareness. We're honest with ourselves. And we also try to break free of those limiting thought patterns. And I talk a lot about tools to do that. I talk a lot about self-compassion, actually.
Mm.
I feel like that is such an amazing gift that we can give ourselves. We do this for our children, our family members, our best friends, but we don't do it for ourselves. And when we do, when we talk to ourselves like we talk to our best friends and our loved ones, it's transformative and it really does help us accept ourselves more and
Mm.
then break free of some of these patterns. And I feel like I've experienced that in my own life, and I felt like that was a turning point for me. So I just wanted to mention that for those in the audience who really struggle with the inner critic. But the second big part of the book is around this because it's not all in our heads. We know this. We all experience, dismissive, disparaging behavior at times, and it's shocking sometimes when you're like, does that person actually say that to me? Like, what happened there? Like, did anyone else hear that?
What?
What's going on here? And I have had many circumstances where I'm like,
Uh-huh.
can I just take a time out? Like, and you're looking around and no one's even acknowledging it, and you literally feel
Mm-hmm.
like you're going crazy.
Mm-hmm.
So I talk a lot about difficult work environments and environments we can find ourselves in because I really wanted to highlight and I really want to have real talk about this is what we experience. And it's okay again, like, but we need to know how to deal with it. We need to be
Yeah.
smart. And there are ways that we can deal with it. I have, yes, been in environments like that. And I have made decisions to leave environments and go on to another environment that was again transformative for me because I was so accepted and supported and honored that it was like when you're in a good relationship, you're never going to go to that bad relationship again.
Hmm.
When you know what good looks like,
Yeah.
you're like, oh, this is how I should be treated and how I should treat others. And then you never want to go back. And again, that's very liberating. So I talk about like the competitive work dynamics we find ourselves in. I talk about that toxic work environment where people just are treating people badly and, not really, and justifying like poor behavior, which I feel like there's never any reason to treat someone poorly in my book.
Mhm.
You know,
Amen to that. Amen.
everyone, regardless of their title, position,
Hmm.
role, should be treated with respect. I feel like that is, again, a huge value for me, respect. And when I have people treating people on my team poorly or people around me, like I will say something because that is just like for me table stakes. Like there's no excuse for bad behavior. Anywhere, personally or professionally, we all
Hmm.
struggle because we're all going through, and working out our issues out here, whatever's going on in
Yeah.
here, we're working out here.
Hmm.
But how do we do this and how do we help each other, do this in the right way? And I talk about ways to try to make changes in those environments. The other really important factor I want to talk about is sometimes I'll even say, well, I know if someone's in a great role and they've been there and like they just need to be there for like another year, then they can actually use that as a stepping platform to go into the real job they want at another company. Can
Hmm.
they stick it out? But the key is to not let that toxic environment affect your sense of self-worth so that
Yeah.
you're not internalizing any of that. And if you can stay calm and centered, then you can work with different and work environments. But at some point, this is a personal decision. You're like, I don't want to work here anymore. This is not how I want to spend my time. Life is too short. I want to be excited when I get up in the morning. We all
Hmm.
deserve that. And we should not settle for less. Full stop. At that
Amen.
point, it may be time for a change. And then what I just advocate for is if you can try to find that next position while you're in your current position, just because it's an easier transition. But at the end of the day, you should not stand for being treated poorly and make that move, and things will work out. And as you know, we say, as one door closes, another one opens, or a window opens. There's
Hmm.
so many great opportunities out there for us. And we have more power than we realize, and we don't have to put up with terrible things in our work environment.
Yeah.
So I do spend a lot of time talking about this specific set of circumstances because it's so important, and I think it's even more relevant now than ever, because I do sometimes think that we are sometimes experiencing a little bit more of a resurgence of some of that behavior that I thought, we had done a pretty good job of saying this is not acceptable. I think
Yeah.
now is a question of what is acceptable.
Yeah.
And I have no doubt about what is acceptable, what is not acceptable, but I
Hmm.
think we're experiencing things again. This is where that cognitive dissonance comes in because you're like, why are people allowed to speak like this again?
Yeah. I have so many thoughts. I mean, I just feel like you're causing me to think in so many deeper levels, which is another reason I love talking to you. But number one, I feel like the first thing that I thought as you were sharing all of that is you reminded me that I have a choice. I'm not stuck anywhere. I have a choice. But then you kind of
Absolutely.
walked a spectrum of, okay, no workplace is perfect. Everybody's working out their issues, is what you said. And that's a reminder that you're going to go through hardship. There are going to be fire ants in every yard, you know? And so as you look at greener grass, it may look good, but there's fire ants in every yard. And so you have to do the work and think through, okay, is this just a hardship? Or is it really the far end of the spectrum where it's toxic and it's, not healthy and I do need to leave? But no matter what, you reminded us that we have the choice to stay or go. And you talked about even reflecting all the good that you want to bring into the world. And the first quote that popped into my head, I've heard it since childhood, is Gandhi's "Be the change you want to see in the world." And how does that align with the whole mirror effect? Be the change, start reflecting all of those healthy behaviors that you hope are then reflected in the company. I mean, all of that was flying through my head with everything you were sharing. But then at the end, you were talking about where one door closes, another one opens. Sometimes you're the one cutting the hole in the wall to put a door. And so can you walk us into, that concept of, whether it's a door, a window, or a table, maybe you're building your own table, where you stop fighting for a seat at somebody else's table and you say, no, I'm building my own table. Come join me here. What does that look like, especially for people who maybe feel underrepresented or underheard in the workplace? How do you build your table and then invite people to join you at the table that you've built?
Yeah, so it's such a beautiful concept. And I love everything you just said. We always have a choice. I love that. Love. I tell my children this all the time as well, because I think there's a lot of we're always shoulding all over ourselves, right? Should, would, could, and it's like, no, but we have choices, and we just have to
Mhm.
keep telling ourselves that. It's just because we dig our holes sometimes and we put ourselves there.
Yeah.
Um, and I love that stuck in the mud. I love all your sayings. They're amazing.
Sorry, I'm a visual thinker. I
Yeah,
think in pictures.
that's great. Very, very lively, very, very vivid. Yes, that's exactly right. We have choices, and we have choices to build our own communities. We have choices to build our own tables, find, be in the rooms we want to be in. And I, like to say, a girlfriend, we talk about this all the time, find your people. Find your people. They are out there. I have a
Mhm.
whole chapter talking about building your own personal board of directors and surrounding yourself with your mirrors and finding those people. And that's so, again, empowering, liberating. And we all need to do that. And we need to do that, throughout our lives. I learned that quite late in life, and it was very difficult for me to ask for help. And now I tell everyone, especially the younger generations, like start now, start early, build that personal board and your mirrors, surround yourself with them from as soon as you can.
Mhm.
And because we're going to face hardship, and in terms of the work environment, I also, in addition to self-compassion, having compassion for others, often people are struggling, that we are working with wounded people, and they, again, are reasons sometimes you're so insecure, and that's why they're behaving a certain way. And then when you start to recognize that, I have a whole story about one of my managers, which was shocking when he shared with me, I'm just intimidated of you. I'm scared of you. And I was like, you're scared of me? Like, and I'm like, and I'm like terrified of everything. So, but I didn't even know that.
Mhm.
Um, so, like, a great story here around the community is starting this biotech CEO sisterhood that I started with Angie Yu and Julia Owens. When we were all CEOs of companies in the biotech space, we felt like we were isolated islands. Being a
Mhm.
CEO is very lonely in and of itself, but when we don't have the same networks as some of our male allies, because they just naturally have like this, ingrown network, with
Mhm.
all their schooling and fraternities and the business schools and everything that they experience. I was a clinician, a physician, then a scientist coming into the senior levels in this business world, and I just didn't have those types of networks, and neither did Julia or Angie. And so we got together to say, let's create a network of women CEOs, and it just took off. And it really exemplifying a concept that we have in the medical field, which is unmet need. We talk about unmet
Mhm.
medical need. This was a huge unmet need in our industry, and I think this is across a lot of industries. I don't think this is just unique to biotech or pharmaceuticals. We didn't have a network, a place where we could just go and ask each other questions and
Mhm.
support one another and share ideas and resources in a way where we felt safe and nurtured. And we created this, and it just grew. And a lot of that actually went into my book, in the sense that I learned so much about how transformative that whole sisterhood experience was and is. And I didn't have that before. So we can absolutely build our communities. And we're saying to everyone, you can go out and do this. Go find your people, find a peer group. For me, do the mirror effect with the journal in a peer group. Like, get a book club together, like, create a community that you really feel comfortable in. It's truly transformative. And to your point, build your own table. Now I start up companies. I'm a company founder, and I talk to so many women, especially in the sisterhood, and we are driving the culture in these companies. We're building these companies, and we're deciding what values we want to really have shine in these cultures. And we're tending to this garden as our companies grow, and we are making sure that we are working in an environment where we feel like we're thriving. and everyone's thriving as much as possible in sometimes these crazy financial markets. So I do that now, and I feel so blessed to have that opportunity to build these own tables. But anyone can, again,
Mm,
even at a young age, and and that you have to decide what's best for you. Like, what environment are you going to thrive in? For me,
mm,
I love startups. I love being an entrepreneur. I love founding companies. And that's really, and I didn't know that that was going to be, what would resonate with me so much. I also love working in bigger companies as well. I think every company has its, pros and cons. But the thriving, the startup environment where it's just a bunch of people who really treat each other well and who are
mm.
there for each other, I find so dynamic and fulfilling.
Man, as you were talking about the CEO sisterhood, I actually caught myself taking deeper breaths. Like that immediately made me relax. Imagine a place for those of you listening, whether you're male or female, it doesn't matter. Imagine a place, a group of people who share similar values, but you know what? It's where you can go and catch your breath. And it's a place where you can go and say, man, here's what I'm struggling with. Like, how can help me walk through this? Because you can be real, you can be honest. You don't have to have it all figured out or put together. You're not wearing a mask of any kind. Like, you're able to actually take a breath and say, here's what I'm struggling with. Help me through it. And you trust these people because you can be completely, you truly belong. And you don't have to, like I said, wear a mask or anything. Like as you were talking, I'm like, that sounds so amazing. But I love that you said, go find that. Be kind to yourself and go find that supportive group of people. And if you can't find it, start it and invite other people to join you. Make it safe for them to come in so they can catch their breath too. It's so good. I feel like we're out there playing chase. I'm going to go old school with the visual here. Remember
Okay.
being in elementary and you would like play tag or something at recess? And there was always a base, and a base is where you would run to catch your breath. I feel like what you were talking about is those tables or the sisterhood or those groups is like where you can stop playing chase and tag and catch your breath.
That is beautiful. And another way to visualize this is I talk about like building bridges. Like we were
Mm.
feeling so disconnected, and then all of a sudden now we've built bridges with all these different islands, and we've
Oh,
brought them
yes.
together. And so we're not lonely or isolated anymore. We're absolutely connected. And again, it just feels so great. If I could bottle these types of feelings and just that safety and
Hmm.
that feeling of belongingness, I would. And I would drink it every day
There
and
you
have
go.
everyone I know drink it.
It's your new
Um,
energy drink, right? You don't need all those other things. It's going to give you a heart attack. You need this as your energy drink. I love it.
exactly. And it just calms you down, brings your
Yeah.
nervous system, your
Yeah.
parasympathetics go off, and you're just breathing deeply and feel centered and grounded and safe. And it's just like luxurious. It's such a wonderful feeling.
Oh, so good. Your title, The Mirror Effect, I think it really hits home. Number one, the mirror has tend to been a negative thing in my own head, that inner critic, that inner talk. You've already said, hey, let's switch that up. Let's be careful. Let's be kind to ourselves, be compassionate to ourselves, and reflect who we really want to be and have more confidence in going out in that. But if you're, for the listeners out there, right? Let's say they're starting to create a life and a career. Maybe they're younger or maybe they're into it and they want to change or whatever. But how do we step into creating that life and that career that's worth mirroring? One that reflects confidence and yet authenticity, but also humility and impact, right? We all want to make an impact. So, what would be like a first small step that we could take? Because, leadership isn't really about what others see in us, it's about what we reflect back to the world. Leadership is influence. And so, what would be a great first small step for us?
Well, I loved what you said about leadership, and I think leadership is around followership and your impact you're having. Again, I think it just starts with ourselves. When we feel good about what we're doing and we are connected to our higher purpose, whatever that is for ourselves, I think that's really an important first step. Kind of getting clarity on what your purpose is and what brings meaning into your life and that value system that is so important for you. And then living by those values, because then you don't have cognitive dissonance with yourself. Like you are a whole integrated person. And that authentic leadership, that's so powerful. And I like to say, like, so much of communication is nonverbal. As soon
Oh,
as we
yeah.
walk into a room, we immediately are having an impact, positively or negatively, depending on whatever we're emanating
Mhm.
and vibing out. So, when we get that clarity and that centeredness and that grounding, and we know who we are, regardless of your stage of career. And if you're a young parent and you're going into work and you're juggling a lot and how, and you're a little frazzled and overwhelmed. I've gone through all those stages. I completely
Hmm.
understand. But when you're holding yourself and acting with integrity and dignity, it's so powerful. You are absolutely mirroring to everyone around you. You're mirroring to your managers, the higher levels of leadership, to your direct reports, to your peers. Some of the most important relationships that you're going to have in your companies are with your peers, actually. And we all know that manager-employee relationship is really critical, whether you're the manager or you're the employee. So starting from that place, I think it is really the foundation for being a strong leader and doing what's right, and if, again, according to your values and what's right for the business, I think is, I think that those are things that if you just don't compromise on them, I think you'll find your way. And medicine and in biotech, like I got that clarity. For me personally, it was about being a physician executive and always keeping the patient at the center of my decision making. And when
Hmm.
I got that clarity and I got that at my first biotech, significant company, Genentech, I realized if that's my compass, inner and external, like I will make the right decisions and I will not get lost. And like just always think about like what is right for the patient, making sure we're safeguarding patient safety, and then really going after something that's going to be meaningful for the patient and their
Hmm.
families. That was like the way I was going to be making decisions. So whatever that is for you, like see if you can just like, adhere to that. There's a lot of pressures that hit us from all different angles.
Hmm.
And sometimes we lose our way, and that's okay too. We just have to then kind of find that way and get back to it and get back to ourselves.
Man.
But I
I
think
love
that
the
to me is the foundational aspects of starting on that leadership journey.
I love it. I love the visual that you had, the compass. Think about it. If you identify what, and I know there's, leadership concepts around this, what your true north is, like you said, you made every decision, everything went through that filter, that compass of patience, and that is how you walked. That set your path. And so every leader has to do the work to decide what is their compass, where are they headed, and how are they going to filter all decisions, all directions, all paths from there. It's a great first step. Man, that was good. So, as we wrap up, you've talked about so many amazing things. My brain is just going 90 to nothing. But what are some key takeaways out of all the things that you've shared with us? And I know there's even some concepts we didn't even get to from your book, but what are some key takeaways for our listeners that they need to apply in their leadership, so that they can step out with authenticity, right? And be that mirror?
Well, the first is, again, starting with ourselves. I just want to kind of come back to that because I think this is very true for women and potentially other people who sometimes just don't feel like they fit in. They've had a lot of different conditioning, maybe even traumatic experience that they've experienced during their lives, and it just all gets internalized. And, if you feel like you're not thriving, there just may be something to be examined. And I thought I was doing that work, and I was shocked when I realized that I was really operating from a place of fear. I then realized by saying no to that, it was so liberating again for me in my entire life, not just my work life, just for me as a human being to
Mhm.
connect to more happiness and joy. So, really starting with that holding up your own mirror and being compassionate to yourself. And it's hard, it's like a muscle you have to exercise. So, I really just want to, really stress that again.
Mhm.
And then I think the other aspect about navigating your environments and paying attention to when things aren't going well. I call it the red flags or the warning signs, those that filling in your belly or when the hair goes up on the back of your neck and you're like, something just doesn't feel right. Pay attention to that. That is your body signaling to you, that you should pay attention to whatever is happening and take it from there. And the last is, again, surrounding yourself with mirrors, finding your people. And that's just so transformative. Like making sure you
Mhm.
have these communities that you can lean on, I think is just, it's just essential. And I just implore everyone to do that.
Man, such great advice. Thank you so much, for sharing that. But now I want to flip it and go the opposite. I always ask every guest, you know, we talk about so many amazing things that we should do as leaders. But now going the opposite, what's one poor decision that you're like, come on, leader, don't do this one thing. You're better than that. Like, stay away from this. What's the one poor decision?
I think for me, it's a little bit about what I just said in my summary in the last the last piece was don't do it alone.
Mm,
I felt like I had to do everything alone, and I was striving and fighting and I had to be perfect all the time and we're not meant to live life alone. We're not meant to work alone. And
mhm,
if I could just go back and tell my younger leader self, ask for help, find again, build that board, build your
mhm,
network and reach out to them. I think that could have served me so well, especially in some of the challenging situations I found myself in, which again is inevitable. If you're successful and you keep, working and you're going to be in difficult situations. It's
mhm.
just life. Whatever curveballs come your way,
Yeah.
but you don't have to face them by yourself.
I love that. The thing that just popped in my personal head as I just pretty much share my journey of what you're making me think about as we go through this. I feel like you just said, hey, stop with the competition, stop going it alone. I think oftentimes competition can drive, I need to outperform other women. So therefore, I'm going to continue to drive by myself and figure it out when it's like other women are not my competition. I love the way that you're building community to lift other women up. And so stop looking at it, Bethany. I'm talking about me personally. Stop looking at it competition. Don't go it alone and bring people together. Have a community. I love it. That was my personal learning from everything that you just said.
Oh, that's great. I think we've again been conditioned to have this lack mindset.
Hmm.
There's only one spot at that table for a woman or whatever that is. And that's not true.
Yeah.
Moving to that abundance mindset, and we're proving that with the CO Sisterhood. I mean, we are helping each other and it's only amplifying our success. And
So good.
that's true power. So moving into that abundance mindset, lifting each other up while we're climbing is only it's this power of amplification that we're experiencing.
Oh, power of amplification. That's amazing. I'm not a huge math person, but I did understand that. All right. So, Dr. Gujrathi, where can our listeners go to learn more about you, and where can they get a copy of your book, The Mirror Effect: A Transformative Approach for to Grow? Excuse me, I messed that up. Where can they go to learn more about you? Get your book, The Mirror Effect: A Transformative Approach to Growth for the Next Generation of Female Leaders. Where can we go get that?
Well, that's available on Amazon, Barnes and Nobles. My publisher Amplify was also selling it on their website, so it's available in all the usual retailers. So please, feel free to go get a copy. I also have an accompanying workbook and journal because I really wanted to make these learnings and these, hopefully these pearls of wisdom alive for
Hmm.
all the readers. So the journal actually has journaling prompts and exercises for each chapter that you can use alongside the book as you're reading it to get out of your head and get it onto paper. There's something about writing that's been shown in research to again help you with your transformation. So, and do
I
this
love
with
it.
a peer group and friends, so you don't have to do it alone. So then it becomes a kind of discussion forum, and you can really talk about it and have some shared language and
Hmm.
learnings. And if you want to follow me, I'm on social media, LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook. I also have a monthly newsletter, so please subscribe to my newsletter where I take different topics and I tackle them through stories and quotes and hopefully some inspiring lessons that I've gone through personally or people I've gone through have shared with me. So please sign up for my newsletter.
Oh, that's so good. And all of the links to all of those things will be in the show notes. So make sure you click on that and go grab a copy of The Mirror Effect. Dr. Gujrathi, thank you so much for being here and thank you for the work you're doing. Just you're such a mirror yourself. I feel like you're, as you said in your TED Talk, you're becoming the disco ball, right? You're bringing a bunch of women together to reflect so many different versions of just beauty of how we can lead well, not only professionally, but personally. So thank you for the work you're doing and thank you for being on the podcast.
Thank you so much, Bethany. It's been such a pleasure to be here.
All right. Guys, until next time, continue putting in the work of building your life and leadership on the rocks, the essential rocks. God bless. Remember, the most essential rock you can build your life and leadership on is the rock of Jesus Christ. Today's Bible verse comes from Colossians chapter 3 verse 12. Therefore, as God's chosen people, holy and dearly loved, clothe yourselves with compassion, kindness, humility, gentleness, and patience.